Battles between the pagans of Mecca and the Muslims of Medina. Battles of Badr, Uhud, and Khandaq. Battle of Badr. So that Allah may establish what He had predestined. Surah 8, Ayat 44, Al-Anfal. Background. Anger and frustration of the Quraysh after migration of Muslims to Medina and rapid growth of Islam. Failed attempts to persuade the hypocrites to send Muslims back. Abu Jahl's threat to Sa'd bin Mu'adh not to visit Mecca for pilgrimage. Sa'd's response of cutting off the trade route of Mecca to Syria via Medina. The Prophet's policy of defense of Medina. He made peace treaties with many tribes living between Mecca and Medina, and the Quraysh also made similar alliances. A number of skirmishes, Ghazwat and Saraya, between small batches of armed Muslims and Meccans from Safar to Rajab to Aj. A Ghazwa, plural Ghazwat, is a battle or expedition led by the Prophet himself. Saraya, plural Saraya. Sariya, plural Saraya, is a battle or expedition in which the Prophet did not participate. The Abwa expedition in Safar to Aj and a peace treaty by the Prophet with Banu Damra. A month later, Qurs bin Jabir, Paris, Paris raid, Qurs, Qurs bin Jabir Paris raid on the outskirts of Medina, destroyed crops and took away a lot of livestock. In Rajab to Aj, raid by Hazrat Abdullah bin Jash to Bath Nakhla near Mecca for spying on the Quraysh. Accidental killing of Amr bin al-Hadrami, who was part of a team of six traders returning from Syria. Hazrat Abdullah bin Jash also took Uthman bin Abdullah, Nafil bin Abdullah, and a slave, Hakam bin Qaisam, as captives. In Rajab to Aj, raid by Hazrat Abdullah bin Jash into Bath Nakhla near Mecca for spying on the Quraysh. Accidental killing of Amr bin al-Hadrami, who was part of a team of six traders returning from Syria. Hazrat Abdullah bin Jash also took Uthman bin Abdullah, Nafal bin Abdullah, and a slave, Hakam bin Qasim, as captives. Both captives were grandsons of Mughira, a highly respected pagan of Mecca. Quraysh felt angry uh, through the captives, though through the captives were though the captives were released. Though the captives were released, the Prophet and his companions also admonished Abdullah. Revelations about jihad. Permission to fight is granted to those Muslims who have been wronged. Surah 22, Ayat 39, Al-Hajj. Shortly after this, Abu Sufyan's trade caravan became the immediate reason for the Battle of Badr. Describe the events of the Battle of Badr. 10 marks. What lessons may Muslims leader learn from the Prophet's conduct in this battle? Makkah, Medina, Badr, Red Sea. Road to Syria, road to to Medina, road to Makkah. Enemy camp, Muslim camp. Answer A. Battle of Badr was fought on 17th Ramadan, 2 AH, 624 AD. The immediate reason for it was the trade caravan of Abu Sufyan, perhaps the biggest caravan in the history of Makkah. As there had been skirmishes and trade started by the Meccans, the Prophet had allowed Muslims to raid the Meccan trade caravans. Their route was within the range of Muslims, especially east of Medina, so Abu Sufyan feared an attack by Muslims while returning from Syria. He immediately sent a courier, Damdam, Damdam Gifari, to Mecca to seek help. The Meccan chiefs quickly raised an army of 1,000 and sent it towards Medina. Abu Sufyan, in the meantime, had traveled along the coastal area west of Medina and was safely beyond the reach of Muslims. He sent another message to Mecca that he did not need any military escort. Abu Jahl, the most hostile Meccan chief, was bent upon attacking Medina and destroying Islam. When the Prophet heard about this, he consulted his companions, and it was agreed to face the enemy out of Medina. He gathered 313 to 315 volunteers, including 86 Muhajirin, while the rest were all in Ansar. The Prophet appointed Abu Lubaba as his deputy in Medina and reached the valley of Badr, about 80 miles southwest of Medina. The Meccan army had already reached the other end of the valley. Muslims soon occupied the wells, but the Prophet did not forbid his enemy from taking water. Due to light rain, more water became available to the Muslims. The Prophet spent the whole night invoking Allah's mercy in a specially designed enclosure called Arish, built by Sa'd bin Mu'adh. Only Hazrat Abu Bakr accompanied the Prophet there, while Sa'd stood guard outside it. The Prophet prayed, O Allah, if this small band of men perishes, there will be no one alive to worship you, and your faith will be destroyed forever. Since Allah had predestined survival of Islam, this prayer was granted. The Quran mentions it as, remember, you implored the assistance of your Lord, and he answered you, I will assist you with 1,000 of angels. Surah 8, Ayat 9, Al-Anfal. The Muslim army had only 60 to 70 camels, 2 to 3 horses, and 60 armored troops. The Quraysh had 100 armored troops, 70 horses, 170 camels, and a good stock of weapons. As the two armies faced each other, the Prophet encouraged Muslims and threw a handful of dust on the Meccan army. The Quran mentions it when you thrust dust. It was not your act, but Allah's. Surah 8, Ayat 17, Al-Anfal. Just before the battle, two Muslims, Huzaifa bin al-Yaman and Abu Husayl, joined the army. They told the Prophet that they had promised they would not fight the Meccans in the battle. The Prophet allowed them to keep their word. The Quraysh challenged for individual combats by sending Utbah, Walid, and Sheba. The Prophet sent three Ansari soldiers, Auf bin Harith, Muawwid bin Harith, and Abdullah bin Rawaha. The Meccans sent them back and asked the Prophet to send his relatives. So Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Hamza, and Hazrat Ubaidah bin al-Harith were sent. Hazrat Ali killed Walid and Hazrat Hamza killed Utbah. Shaba wanted Ubaidah but was himself killed by Ali and Hamza. With this, the general fight began between the two armies. The Prophet had organized his troops in ranks and files and straightened the rows with a baton. He instructed them about using stones, arrows, spears, and swords in accordance with the approaching enemy. Muslims allowed these instructions. The Muslims followed these instructions and soon dominated the enemy. Abu Jahl was fatally wounded by Muad and Muawwid, sons of Afra. Abdullah bin Masud killed him after the battle. A total of 70 Meccans were killed, including such major leaders as Sumayya bin Khalf and Zama bin al-Aswad. Another 70 were taken as captives by Muslims. Only 14 Muslims were martyred. The remaining troops fled back to Mecca. The Quran these events calls this event as Yom al-Furqan. Her day of destruction in 841 Al-Anfal, according to his routine, the Prophet stayed in Badr for 3 days. Muslims were buried while pagans were thrown in a well and elsewhere. The Quran links the Muslim victory with Allah's predestination, and remember when she meant that Allah might accomplish a matter already enacted. Surah 8, Ayat 44, Al-Anfal. The captives were treated like guests. Those who could afford were asked to spy to pay fidya ransom of 4,000 dirhams, and those who could not pay were released as such. The learned among them were asked to teach 10 Muslim children each. Zaid bin Thabit was among those who acquired education this way. Answer B. The Prophet demonstrated his unshaken faith in Allah by spending the night in the remembrance of Allah. His prayer was granted as the Muslims received divine help in the battle. Muslim military commanders should remember Allah in difficult times. Remembrance of Allah guarantees the peace of mind as promised by the Quran. Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find peace. Surah 13, Ayat 28, Al-Rad. The Prophet also proved his leadership skills by giving valuable instructions to his troops before the battle. Muslim leaders should follow him so that their armies or people remain organized and disciplined in challenging circumstances. The Prophet also showed that all struggle and fight should be in the way of Allah, not for any personal motives. He could punish or humiliate the prisoners, but he treated them in a kind way. Muslim commanders should also remember that force is not to be used against the unarmed members of the enemy community. Battle of Uhud. Until you, the archers, flinched and fell into disputing about the order and disobeyed it. Surah 3, Ayat 152, Ali Imran. Question. Describe the events of Battle of Uhud. 10 marks. B. In your opinion, what is the most important lesson that Muslims might learn from this battle? Give reasons to support your answer. 4 marks. So, Uhud Mountain, Muslim retreat camp, Muslim lines, Meccan cavalry, Khalid, Meccan lines, Ikrima, and Meccan chiefs, Muslim bowmen on hill. Yeah. Volcanic lava. So this is the battle situation. As a Meccan cavalry seizes the high ground once the Muslims Arabmen left it for the plains. Here, it was captured by the enemies later. These Muslims disobeyed the instructions of the Holy Prophet and they came down, left it unattended. Answer A. The Quraysh wanted to avenge their defeat in the Battle of Badr. Abu Sufyan became the new military chief in Mecca. He raised an army of 3,000, including 15 women of the aggrieved families of Badr. They included Hind bint Utbah, wife of Abu Sufyan, Hakim, a wife of Ikrimah, and Fatima, a sister of Khalid bin Walid. The army included 3,000 camels, 2,000 horses, and 700 coats of mail. They, uh, they left the left and right wings were under the command of Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl and Khalid bin Walid, respectively, while Amr bin al-As was the commander of the cavalry, and Sufwan bin Umayyah was in charge of the infantry. Talha bin Abu Talha. Talha bin Abu Talha was the flag bearer. Hind hired Washi bin Harb, the slave of Jubair bin Mutim, to kill Hazrat Hamza. His army reached north of Medina in March 625 AD, Shawwal 3 AH, and camped near the Uhud hill along the road to Syria. Hazrat Abbas sent all these details to the Prophet in a letter through a fast courier. Hazrat Hubab bin Mundir Ansari was sent to find out the number of enemy army. The Prophet consulted his followers and decided to face the enemy outside Medina. He recruited 1,000 troops and left for the Uhud valley after the Friday prayer. Near Uhud, the chief of the hypocrites Abdullah bin Ubay deserted with his 300 troops on the excuse that their houses were unsafe back in Medina. The Prophet camped with 700 troops on the western slope of the Mount Uhud. Musab bin Umair was made the flag bearer, Zubair commander of the right wing, and the horsemen. The left wing was under Hazrat Mundir bin Amr. The Prophet appointed the 50 archers under Abdullah bin Jubair on a narrow passage at the back of the Muslim army. They were strictly instructed not to leave unless ordered by the Prophet. The Quran mentions this as remember that morning you left your household to post the faithful at their station for the battle. Surah 3 Ayat 121, Al Imran. Before the battle, the Prophet gave his sword to Abu Dujana, a very powerful Ansari known for his fighting skills. In the single combats, Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Hamza killed Talha bin Abu Talha and Uthman bin Abu Talha, respectively, from the pagan army. With this began the general fight, and Hazrat Hamza, Hazrat Ali, and Hazrat Abu Dujana, a famous wrestler, broke into the enemy ranks. Muslim attack was fierce, and Quraysh began to retreat. Muslims continued to press the enemy and began to collect the spoils. When the 50 archers saw this, 36 of them also left their position and began to collect the booty. The Quran refers to these Muslims in these words: when you, with His, Allah's permission, were about to annihilate your enemy, until you, the archers, flinched and fell to disputing about the order and disobeyed it. Surah 3, Ayat 152, Ali Imran. Hazrat Khalid bin Walid quickly, at that time, Khalid bin Walid had not yet accepted Islam. So Khalid bin Walid quickly mobilized his troops and attacked through the passage. This changed the scene, and the retreating Meccans also made a counterattack as they saw Khalid's powerful attack on Muslims. Many Muslims were killed, including Hazrat Hamza. He was about to kill Sabah bin Abdul Uzza when Awashi bin Harb hurled at him his spear that passed through Hamza's navel. Hazrat Hamza tried to advance but fell down as martyr. Hind mutilated the dead body of Hazrat Hamza by chewing up his liver. In the panic, Hazrat Musab bin Umair, who resembled the Prophet closely, was killed, and it was rumored that the Prophet had been martyred. The Prophet was also wounded and lost one tooth. All his all this disheartened the Muslims, but soon Hazrat Ka'b bin Malik identified the Prophet, and many Muslims rushed to him. Abdullah bin Kamiya struck the Prophet so hard that two links of the helmet got pierced into his face. A group of 14 companions made a shield around the Prophet and quickly climbed towards the hilltop. Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Fatima dressed the wounds of the Prophet. Hazrat Aisha, Sulaim, and Umm Salid served water to the injured Muslims. Abu Sufyan's army killed 70 Muslims while he lost only 22 soldiers. He left for Mecca, challenging to fight the next year. The Prophet reorganized his army and began to bury the martyred Muslims. Finally, the Prophet took his army back to Medina. Soon he received the news of Meccans' plan to attack Medina again. He raised an army, including several wounded soldiers, and reached Hamra, Hamra al-Asad. He waited for the Meccan army for a few days, but it did not show up. B. The most important lesson to be learned from this battle is to accept setbacks and losses as part of life. Allah grants us success for our hard work and good planning. However, He may test us by some failures so that we may learn a lesson from our mistakes. The 36 archers committed the mistake of leaving their posts without the permission of the Prophet, and this became the turning point of the battle. So, in our daily life, if we also make a serious mistake, We should be ready to face the consequences without blaming our luck. We should not complain to Allah for our own wrong planning and misjudgments. Instead, we should plan our projects wisely and sincerely and then leave the consequences to Allah. The Prophet taught Muslims this invocation and in this regard, O Allah, I seek your counsel through your knowledge, and I seek your assistance through your might. Battle of Trench, Battle of Khandaq, or Battle of Trench. Remember when they came at you from east and west. Surah 33, Ayat 10, Al-Ahzab. Question. Give an account of the Battle of Khandaq or Battle of Trench. 10 marks. Explain the importance of this battle in the history of Islam. 4 marks. Answer A. So this be the trench from here to all this all along. Banu Abdul Ashal, Banu Zafar, Banu Nabit, Banu something not readable. Muslim Command, Prophet's Mosque, Banu Zuriya, Banu Najjar, Banu Waqif, Banu Hans, Banu Kanuka. So this is one part of the trench, and there were some others as well. Banu Qureza, Banu Nadir, Banu mm, Jajaba, Banu. Okay, so many Banu. You can see Banu Auf and Banu Habla, Banu Beza, Banu Salda. So this is the location of the different tribes. And Kinana, Asad, Salim, Mara, and Shuja, Khuzara, Ghatafan troops, and Quraysh troops. Okay, they planned it's Mount Uhud. Hmm. So this is the real map of the trench. Okay, this is Mount Ghatafan encampment and a Quraysh encampment and a Salah, Medina, Banu Qurayza, and this is the trench. Okay, it is drawn here and maybe drawn here. So this is the way to for protection. Air and the direction towards north. Okay, let's see. The Battle of Khyber or Battle of Trench or Battle of Allies was fought in 627 AD, the Kala 5 AH. The Jews of Banu an-Nadir had been expelled from Medina due to their conspiracies. Their leaders, Salam bin Abi al-Hukayk, Hoya bin Akhtab, Kinana bin al-Rabi, and others instigated the Quraysh to raise an army of the allies against the Prophet. Assured of the Quraysh support, they also persuaded the Ghatafan tribe to join the anti-Muslim alliance. Other tribes that joined the alliance were Banu Asad, Banu Fazara, Banu Marra, Banu Ashja, Banu Sulaim, and other smaller Najdi tribes. The whole army consisted of around 10,000 troops. The army was divided into 3 regiments. Oyena bin His Fazari led the Ghatafan forces. Talha led the Banu Asad, while Abu Sufyan was the supreme commander. Uthman bin Talha was the flag bearer. The Prophet was told about this by some men of his friendly tribe, Banu Khuza, in Mecca. He evaluated the Muslim strength and realized that he could raise only 3,000 troops. He consulted his companions and accepted the advice of Hazrat Salman Farsi. He suggested Hazrat Salman Farsi suggested the digging of a ditch around Medina. Persian defensive war tactic employed when the invading army greatly outnumbered the defending army. The idea appealed to the Prophet and he surveyed the defense of Medina. Eastern, southern, and western sides of the city were protected by hills. His forts of Banu Qurayza and palm groves. Therefore, the trench was dug on a northern side of Medina. The Prophet and his 3,000 companions worked together to dig the trench for about 20 days. He demarcated the area and allocated a unit of 10 yards to each group of 10 Muslims. During all this period, Muslims suffered a lot of hunger and thirst. Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah had one saw of barley and a lamb. He invited the Prophet, who came with his companions. Hazrat Jabir got worried as he saw so many guests. However, he reported the Prophet's miracle in these words: I swear by Allah that all of them ate unto their fill, and yet our pot was brimming over just as before. Sahihan. The trench measured 5.5 kilometers in length, 9 meters in width, and 4.5 meters in depth. However, at one place it remained a little bit narrow. The companions worked diligently while the hypocrites would escape without seeking the permission of the Prophet. When the allies reached, they were greatly disappointed and were forced to lay a siege around Medina. The Prophet had sent women and children in fortresses and set up his military base at the foothills of Mount Sal. He posted guards at the weak points of the trench. Salama bin Aslam, with 200 men, was posted in on the rear of Muslims to watch the activities of the Jews of Banu Qurayza. The siege got prolonged over weeks, and the allies made two attempts to get success. Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl, Amr bin Abdwud, Dirar bin Khattab, Ubaira bin Abi Wahab, and Nawfal bin Abdullah managed to cross the trench. They were all repulsed by Hazrat Ali, Hazrat Saad bin Muad, and others. Hazrat Ali killed Amr and wounded Krima, while Nawfal fell in the trench and died. According to some sources, he too was killed by Hazrat Ali in the trench. Then the allies tried to win the support of the Jews of Banu Qurayza. Huyay bin al-Akhtab persuaded the chief of Banu Qurayza, Ka'b bin Asad, to break his treaty with the Muslims and attack them to help the allies. However, Nuaym bin Masood, the Ghatafan chief, embraced Islam secretly. Using his influence, he successfully kept the Banu Qurayza and the allies apart by creating doubts between the two. The allies, for 2 weeks, hurled stones and arrows at the Muslims without any success. As the siege prolonged, difficulties of the allies increased, and with the death of the camels and horses, one day or the other, after 2 weeks, stormy winds blew with heavy rain for many days. This increased the problems for the allies, and they decided to lift the siege. This is referred to in the Quran, but we sent against them a hurricane and forces that you did not see. Surah 33, Ayat 9, Al-Ahzab. Thus, Muslims got a victory without a regular fight. 6 Muslims were killed against 3 pagans. The chief of the Aus tribe, Hazrat bin Muad, died of fatal wounds. After the departure of the allies, the Jews of Banu Qurayza were punished for their treachery. B. The battle or siege of Medina proved to be the last attack of the Quraysh on Medina. Their allied tribes would no more trust them in future. Their pride and prestige got seriously damaged. This battle was another occasion of testing the faith of Muslims. They began to run short of food as they had been cut off from the neighboring territories. The Quran also mentions the situation. In that situation, where the believers tried, they were shaken as by a tremendous shaking. Surah 33, Ayat 11, Al-Ahzab. However, the Muslims were able to withstand hunger, fear, and cold with the help of their firm faith. By accepting Hazrat Salman Farsi's suggestion, the Prophet proved that he welcomed new ideas that could benefit the entire community. Another important outcome of the battle was the punishment of the Jews of Bani Qurayza for their act of high treason. So these were the battles fought for Medina and the defeat of the Meccans at the hand of the Muslims in Medina. And thank you very much for watching this video. I wish you have a pleasant day ahead and a successful examination. Goodbye.